Dap-a-doo, two white guys in a wheelchair.
Go. So, hello everyone. This is your host Raven, and today we have a very special guest. We have Mark Randall with SafeLink Alberta, and I am going to let Mark introduce himself, tell us a little bit about him, and then we'll get into it. So, Mark, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being here. And for the listener, could you let them know who you are?
Well, I'm a lot of things. So my name is Mark Randall, as you've already mentioned. I work for SafeLink Alberta as the Community Outreach Coordinator. I'm responsible for our presence in community with our booth and our resources, talking about what we do, who we are, what programs and services we offer, those kinds of things. Personally, I'm a person who's been living with HIV, diagnosed in 1988. Told I'd be dead by 1992, almost did die in 1995. Great new treatments came along, turned my life around, turned my world around, turned my career around, and found myself trying to figure out what it was I was going to do next now that I've been given this second opportunity with life. And someone suggested that I take my background in food service to, at the time, the Calgary Awareness Association and support their lunch program for people with HIV so they could have a nutritious meal once a week. So I figured, let's give that a try, and that just evolved from a volunteer thing in one area to another volunteer area within the organization. And eventually it just started accumulating, and then I found myself doing national HIV work, provincial HIV work. It just grew like a monster. And I basically went from, what the hell am I going to do now? When I recovered from my near loss of life. And this fell in my lap, and it's been the most backhanded gift I could have ever got.
And how long have you been doing this work specifically for SafeLink Alberta now for, like, I guess this role for them?
In this particular role that I have now, I have been with the organization for 15 years. So I was just 15 years in May, but I actually started my activities with the organization in 1998 as a volunteer, and I've had contracts and different things over the years. So I've always stayed connected to the organization when it met my needs, and I felt I could meet their needs at the same time. There's always times when you don't feel like you're in the right place at the right time, but eventually you always get drawn back into the work. So it's always pulled me back in. The opportunity to educate, inform, and provide truth and fact to folks versus fear, anxiety, misinformation is a critical win for me. And it gives me my voice, which is probably the biggest thing that I got out of volunteering, was finding my voice and figuring out where I was going to be and where I needed to be, and that I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So maybe tell Eric how you and I met. Because I had mentioned that to Eric a little bit before. I guess my side of the story is that we've done a few podcasts here at the library, and we saw there was one of those big street signs that said there was a accessibility event that was occurring at the library. And so Eric couldn't make that, but I could. So I came in, and I thought it was like they were going to do like a town hall and like have people come up to the mic and make a public comment. But it was more of a booth where they just kind of were, telling I guess the public here at the library what the accessibility, I don't know if you'd call it department or the strategy of the city, which I found really cool. But there was also a lot of other booths there at the time.
Correct.
And so I guess, what were you doing there? And is that kind of a common thing that you go around Alberta doing kind of events like that?
So
there's a couple questions in there. Yeah, sorry, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, exactly. So there I was minding my own business in the library. No, part of my role as community outreach coordinator is to be in the public with our booth and resources and let the community know what we do, why we do what we do, how they can support us, how they can get involved with us, give them access to safer sex supplies, safer resources, information on preventing sexually transmitted bloodborne infections, blah, blah, blah. So that's a big part of what I do. We're not all over Alberta. We have an office in Medicine Hat as well. So our Medicine Hat folks pretty much stick to their area. I tend to get a bit of a bonus here in Calgary because I get to do Strathmore, I get to do Okotoks, I get to do Airdrie, I can do Banff, and we're kind of like Calgary and the outlying area all the way to Lethbridge.
Oh wow.
The reality is also the capacity to do the work. So it costs money to travel. It costs money to set up a booth. It costs money to set a staff person out. So we're very strategic in where we go and where our booth goes and how we participate.
Yeah.
So we get invited to a lot of things, but they don't always quite fit who we are. But what I like to do in those situations is find someone who I know in community is the right fit and connect them that way. So that's another piece of what I do as well, is just connecting other people to other people that I've met over the years.
Yeah, and that was something that sparked my interest when I started talking with you like that. Because you've mentioned that you've been in the space with the same organization for 15 plus years and in the space for longer. And I was like, oh, you definitely have seen the evolution. Even before we started recording, we were talking about this, how things have evolved, how the needs have changed within not just Calgary, but kind of the wider Calgary area as well too. And I would imagine that each place in Calgary has different needs and I guess like there's different pressures on different places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Depending on where you come from, your access is
totally different.
If you're in the city of Calgary, you have access to a lot more services, organizations, even specific ones, more unique and specific to what your needs might be. But if you're living in Cayley, if you're living in all of a sudden I can't think of any small town, Irkana, places like that, you've got to go into the city and you've got to go to your next biggest center to see a doctor. The nearest STI clinic is probably the city of Calgary. So your
barriers go up.
Yeah. So the more isolated in community you are, and with the less access to services and other resources you have, the potential for higher opportunities to be exposed to certain things exists. And the lack of being able to find the knowledge and resources you need easily and quickly without having to go into a major center.
Okay. Wow. What do you think?
No, I was just thinking to go back a little bit. You mentioned back at the beginning when you were diagnosed. What that was quite something.
Yeah, it was. I don't think about it very often anymore. But it was very surreal. So it wasn't my diagnosis that did that. It was my nearly dying.
Yeah, yes.
And then having access to the newest treatments that became available that literally shifted me. So to give you an image, I went from 98 pounds to 170 pounds in 6 weeks.
Wow.
I literally went from planning my funeral. I was coughing, all those horrible, dark, nasty things. I planned it, organized, picked up my music, picked up my flowers, picked up the blah, 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 blah. And then 8 weeks later, I'm being told, your world just changed. And suddenly I went from saying goodbye to everyone I knew to going, what the hell am I going to do for the next 40 years of my life? Because I don't know how much longer I have now. So it was a really exciting moment to know that I wasn't going to die right away. But it was also, oh, great. Now what do I do? I've blown my insurance. I've spent all my savings. I've been living on a disability, AISH, which is like, back then was nothing. Even still today, it's nothing to survive. It's just bare. So So, yeah, being given that opportunity to have your life back again after preparing to say goodbye to it all, was a bit of an eye opener and a significant reality check on my privilege. Because the reason I'm still here is because I'm white, I'm male, I have access to great health care, and I have a big mouth that can scream when somebody pisses me off. So when you can advocate for yourself and speak for yourself, and you come to the table with a lot of privilege in your hand, you get treated very differently than someone who does not have those things.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because I think the biggest, or not the biggest, but one of the, I've seen this firsthand, is I've seen this here at any healthcare system, is you need to advocate hard to get the right treatment. In my anecdotal experience, because if you play it down, or just kind of go with the flow, it's very easy to be like, okay, they don't need help, on to the next person.
Yeah.
And I've seen that firsthand, where it's like, oh no, this person needs help, and the reason that they're not getting help is because
They get properly.
well, yeah, it is a big privilege thing for sure.
Absolutely.
But it's also like, just, you got to be a bulldog, man. And it's like, and most people aren't like that. And it's not very fun to do, right?
Exactly.
It's very grating, right?
Yeah.
So, I very much empathize with that statement. Yeah.
But just to play devil's advocate on that too, our healthcare system is struggling to be able to provide everything it needs to provide to people in the way it needs to be provided. So that's an ongoing challenge. It's a global issue. It's not like it's unique to us in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
Healthcare has always been a challenge to coordinate, organize, fund, and provide. So
a wicked problem.
it is. But again, I'm here because of that healthcare system. I'm not in a box in the ground somewhere because I didn't have that healthcare system. So I just wish it was more equitable to everybody walking through the door, regardless of what they look like when they walk.
Yeah.
And that's
Well said. Yeah.
And that's an HIV thing that's been forever. There was a time when you could look at someone and go, "Oh my God, they got HIV." You look like shit. Now we look like this. And you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know, right? So it kind of changes that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah.
But I also know that an Indigenous woman struggling perhaps with homelessness and maybe some other life challenges walks into the same healthcare setting and does not get treated.
Very different experiences.
So know my privilege, respect my privilege, be grateful for the privilege I have, but use that privilege to make things better.
Realize
for us and have opportunities like this to say, I get treated well, not everyone.
Yeah, I think that's poetry. Yeah. How old were you when this kind of this near death happened? And then how, I guess from, I don't know if you want to answer this, you don't have to answer this, but from, I guess, contracting HIV to that moment, how many years was that? I guess kind of what that experience, I might be digging up shit that you don't want to talk about, because I would imagine that's a very scary and probably traumatizing kind of experience. And then I guess, what from your early life did you take with you into this new life that you were kind of given?
That's a lot. Wow. Okay, so I was diagnosed in 1988, born 72, 82, 26. Does that sound? Is that right, Matt? 28?
I didn't get the mental math gene.
Either I was 26 or I was 28 when I got diagnosed. 1993, I started getting really, really unwell. 1995, I was no longer able to work. That's when I was at my absolute worst and starting to get to my worst. 1996, 6, I got access to the medication.
Mm.
Started them in September or October. And when I flew home to see my mother in December, I got past it. But she didn't. That was the impact of recovery. For not everyone, but for a good majority of those of us who are living with HIV. Now, what did I take from my past into today? I think I took all of the life skills that I got growing up as a military kid. So I've always had to, every 2 or 3 years of my younger years, we packed up, we moved to a new place. You said goodbye to your friends, you met new friends, you have new enemies, you have new this, you have new that.
New life.
And you had to do this repeatedly every 3 years. And when you're a kid, it freaking sucks. You don't want to say goodbye to your friends and start all over again. But as an adult, I grew to really appreciate all of the unknown tangible skills that came with that. Being able to start all over again, being able to almost be a chameleon and blend into new environments and spaces, regardless of how new or different they may be. I also took with me the memory of a lot of people that didn't make it, who I'd say goodbye to, who didn't live long enough to see what I saw and be here. So that is what lit the fuse. That is what kindled my little fire about what I was going to do. But it wasn't until I was actually working and supporting other people living with HIV, making lunch, that I really felt I had a community and a place where I was going to fit again. Because I kind of felt like when I was prior to that, I was living secretly with my HIV. There were people who knew, but I wasn't public. I'm totally public.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
But
you
it was,
had to hide yourself.
We all did. We isolated, we hid, and when we started to get sick and die, we didn't want people to see us at our worst. So, I don't want to. It's one of my things. When I see my friends, when I have friends who are well in hospital, I don't want to go see my friends when they're at their worst. I want to remember my friends vibrant, alive, laughing, dancing. I don't want to see them weeping.
Yeah, I think that's a masculine thing as well too. Like I know, at least speaking for myself, one of the hardest things I can personally do is ask for help, and putting in, having that vulnerability.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah, it's yeah, I can tough this. It's like, oh, you're dying of HIV/AIDS, and it's like you can ask for help. It's like, no, I can muscle through it. It's like no, you have to ask for help. You have to be vulnerable. It's but there's so many pressures telling you, no, be strong.
And the only reason I'm here is because I was able to ask for help, and I did have an amazing network of family.
Yeah,
without question. The most amazing group of people around me who were supportive.
Yeah.
And so many people had nothing.
Yeah.
They were literally kicked out of their homes by family. I watched a guy literally get thrown out of his house by his father. Physically thrown out of his house by his father. Because not only did he have to tell his father he was HIV positive, he also had to tell his kid.
Yeah.
So a lot of us did a twofer.
Yeah. I think I find that so not interesting. Interesting. It's interesting, but I think that it's so easy today to not appreciate that. For me, it's just I have a few relatives who are gay, trans, and at least for me, as a 29-year-old, I'm like, oh, and this isn't the case for everyone, but for me, and I think within my anecdotal social circle, it's mostly okay, who cares? Yeah, we're still people. Let's move on. There's not as much of the hang up. And I know that's not the case for everyone. But then I forget just how, and looking back, I remember watching, I think it was Milk, the Sean Penn thing, Dallas Buyers Club, and just how hostile the environment was to that idea at all. So I find myself easily forgetting that.
We're not living in the same fear.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Back then it was AIDS is death.
Yeah.
End of conversation. And today HIV is a problem.
Yeah.
But people like to say it's like, diabetes, but it's not, because HIV comes with a nasty stigma attached to it. And you can still be charged for not disclosing your HIV status, even when there's no chance of transmitting an HIV infection.
Oh, interesting.
So society is moving forward, always evolving, next generation better than the next generation, better than the next generation. But at the same time, we're still stuck in some of those like really deep-rooted bullshit pieces of what HIV is.
Yeah. I thought that might be an interesting story. Could you talk about that evolution in treatment, and then for the listener out there, Mark is in and I'll put a link in the description because I found it on YouTube. It's I believe the documentary is called Undetectable, and then I think it was how HIV went viral, or
how media let HIV go viral.
How media let HIV go, and it's a phenomenal. I found it as a phenomenally interesting documentary because I knew that HIV was not as, and pardon my language if this sounds ignorant, or but wasn't as big of a problem as it was in the past.
Correct.
And so I just kind of assumed, it's like, in the zeitgeist, it sounds like, ever since I was in high school, pretty much is treatable and you can live. And then I didn't really think about transmission or anything like that. It was just like, it's like, you don't die from it anymore. And then that was kind of like all I thought about it. But this Undetectable documentary I found was really interesting because I didn't realize how bad the stigma still was, how prevalent that was. And then I had no idea that the medication had gotten to a point where technically you still have HIV, but if you do like a blood test, you can't detect it.
Correct.
So you can
detect it.
Sorry.
It's at a control level.
Yes. Sorry.
So you can. This is the science side of things, right?
Yeah. So you can detect it, but you can't
transmit.
You can't transmit it. Yeah. So I didn't know that. I found that really cool. And like Cardo, as we were walking in here, you were saying like, what a relief that is to probably millions of people with HIV, that they can now go into a sexual relationship without all of their own kind of like self stigma around their disease as well too.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about how that has evolved over the years.
You touched on some really good things in
that
too as well.
Take it wherever you'd like to go with it.
And that's it. We have evolved. And one really, really good point that you made there is that the HIV I grew up with and the HIV you and people younger than you have grown up with are very different conversations and messages that come out. So in 1988, we didn't know what HIV was. We knew what HIV was, but we couldn't detect it. We couldn't find it quite yet in blood tests and stuff. We were looking for antibodies that we knew were activated when HIV was present. So when you saw these antibodies, that was your HIV diagnosis. We had no treatments. When I was diagnosed in '88, we had AZT. That was the one and only medication that was available to me.
That's the big one. That's
the very first one that we had.
That's the Dallas Buyers Club, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that that Anthony, I don't know how the algorithm works, but I didn't realize Anthony Fauci was really involved in that whole thing as well too. So it's just kind of an interesting, like how, So anyways, continue.
Fauci was ahead of his day, for sure. What happened was that we started with my goodness, I'm going to get a lesson in my own science. We started with antiretroviral, which is what AZT is. Antiretroviral therapy, you may have heard of therapy before. And then we started getting things like D4T, TC3. That sounds like a car. But all these weird names and letters and stuff that were attributed to medications and stuff. The challenge with all of these medications in the early years is that they had incredible side effects that came with them for some folks. I could not take AZT. I tried it. I almost lost my hand in a mixer at work because of the side effects from it. And it was like I felt fine until I started taking the medication. I never felt sick with my HIV status until I started taking these.
Yeah.
So which is a weird thing to be like, but I started taking the medication because that's what the science was telling us to do for the most effective outcome. But we also found out that we were dosing people at 1,800 milligrams 3 times a day when we should be only giving them 1,800 milligrams once a day.
Yeah.
So it was a learning curve. We were
Yeah.
poisoning a lot of people. They died of liver failure, not HIV. So constant changing of medications, adjusting medications, adding a new medication to the formularies as they were being developed by other pharmaceutical companies. If it were not for people living with HIV willing to play guinea pig with some of the most toxic medications I've ever seen people take, and that I've ever had to take in my life, was both disheartening and inspiring simultaneously because we were desperate. And when you're being told you're going to die, and this is all I have, but we don't know what it's going to do, you'll take it because you don't want to die. So many people were going through changes in medication, new combinations of medication, allergies were discovered in some of the medications that were being provided. But as they evolved more and more, we started, and then 94, 95, Dr. Ho out of the US had discovered this combination therapy of mixing protease inhibitors, or the new class of drugs that came out. And then someone else decided, hey, we should take protease inhibitors and antiretrovirals, combine them into highly active antiretroviral therapy, heart. And that's where we saw the change. And sadly, when we saw that really super amazing positive change of people no longer dying from HIV, we started to see education. We started to see supports. We started to see all of the things that were connecting people and keeping people safe with each other, living with HIV, start to disappear. And that's hard to watch when you're the person living with it. And you know what impact that's having. So medication has evolved from where I was taking 45 pills plus a day to 1 pill a day. So, that's profound and no side effects. So
yeah, that's a world of difference.
40-year evolution. Yeah. And I think the biggest piece that comes out of this that we missed in really getting out to folks is that a person living with an undetectable viral load is the success of treatment.
Yeah.
We have a treatment. We haven't got a cure, but we have a treatment that can support and be given to people living with HIV where they can no longer be transmittable and pass the infection on to anyone else.
And when did that happen? Was that was that a quick evolution from that 95 revolution, or did that take another many years?
It took a few years, and this was as a result of gatekeeping by big pharma and doctors.
Okay.
Because we had the science. It came out in a Swiss statement, I believe in, I want to say 1996, where they first suggested that people on effective treatment could reduce their viral load and not transmit HIV onto people. And it was approved.
Interesting. What year would that be?
I think that was 1996.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So,
wow.
So we're just starting to see protease inhibitors come into market. So our new medications that are coming to market and showing this success. It wasn't until a few years later that people began to start talking more and more. The actual true launch of the messaging of U equals U didn't happen until the undetectable campaign came out of the United States.
And then, just so for the listener, U equals U.
Undetectable means untransmitted. So it's not a band.
Yeah.
But I do like Bono because he's pretty good. He's a pretty good guy for HIV.
I totally forgot about their.
And the Reds part.
Yeah.
So all of that kind of it, as much as it was a success, it was also a bit of a detriment because now we removed that fear of HIV from people. We did a really good job of scaring the shit out of people as it relates to contracting HIV and what it's like to live with HIV. Now we've had to go back and say it's not what it used to be. Things have changed. I'm planning my retirement, not happily, because all my income earning years were spent
not surviving.
Income. So and spending my insurance and cashing in my policies, and I was told you're going to be dead. So it's we've kind of lost that anxiety around HIV. People aren't quite as scared of it as the way they used to be, which I'm okay with because I don't want people to be scared of it. I want people to be aware of it and know how to prevent it using science, not misinformation. Or fear.
What kind of side effects came along with the early version of
it was quite a list, but the ones that really debilitated folks were the nausea, dizzy spells, body aches, severe diarrhea, difficulty sleeping. So all the things that you need to be well are being impacted by these medications, and then you try to adjust those side effects by adding something else. So you start taking something I can't remember what it's called to prevent diarrhea. Imodium. So we start. They give you Imodium. Okay, so now there's another pill. So now I'm up to 48. And I've got this side effect. So here's a pill to counteract that effect. Oh, there's 2 more pills to add to it.
Oh, but this one actually adds this side effect.
You see the ad on TV where they're talking about, I'm getting older. I've got my little pill container, and the lady turns around to call that a pill container. This is a pill container. But I'm happy to say I've gone from a pill container like this to a pill like this. So, and I don't have those side effects. So, I think that's probably the biggest message that we want to get out to folks now is that HIV today is nothing like it once was. Nothing like it once was. In fact, if anything, it's the absolute opposite of what it was when we discovered it.
It's not a.
It's
more of like it's like I don't want to.
Chronic.
It's chronic illness.
It's the best way to describe it.
It's not a death sentence.
But you have to do so.
But actually, maybe that's a good segue. If you could maybe talk about, as the treatment for HIV/AIDS changed, how there was AIDS Calgary first? How AIDS Calgary transitioned with that to eventually becoming SafeLink Alberta today.
Oh, so the evolution of AIDS Calgary to where we are today. We started as AIDS Calgary because that is what we first identified. It got the name AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So initially it was called GRID, gay-related immune deficiency. Most offensive. Sadly, it's still being taught that way in some states.
Oh
no. It was about AIDS. That's what the news was talking about. You heard about Rock Hudson. That's what the big tagline was on the news. That we evolved to become HIV Community Link because we were asked as an organization, as AIDS service organizations nationally, to take on hepatitis C work as well. And that made sense because HIV and hepatitis C were almost walking hand in hand in many cases. Many people were living with both diagnoses. Hemophiliacs had been infected with the tainted blood scandal, or through the blood products that were being created when we didn't know about HIV. We had other folks who,
SafeLink Alberta. Transitioning to from AIDS Calgary to HIV Community Link.
So we became HIV Community Link in part because we took on hepatitis C as well, but we were also no longer seeing people dying of AIDS. And we were really trying to change the educational language to speak about the virus, HIV, because HIV is the virus that gets into our body, attacks our immune system without treatment, and debilitates us to the point where we can fall prey to opportunistic infection. No, we don't die of AIDS. We die of other infections as a result of having one.
Mhm.
One of the challenges of naming something before we do the health was.
Yes.
And then going backwards to try and change people's train of thought. So we changed to HIV Community Link. Another reason for that was because people were terrified to walk through the door of an organization that said AIDS upon it. Because they were afraid someone would think they had HIV or were living with an AIDS diagnosis simply because they were walking through our door. It could have been a volunteer. It could have been a family member. It could have been just someone who wanted to know.
Yeah.
Somebody coming out. We don't know who was coming. But it was a stigmatizing thing, and it prevented people from accessing our service.
And where was that? Was it just originally one building or one center?
We moved
Okay.
over the years
Okay.
a few times
Okay.
to where we are today. So how we evolved to SafeLink Alberta from HIV Community Link was HIV was still a stigmatizing language to get people through our door. They were still scared to come through the door. But we were also asked, directed, encouraged.
A mix of everything. Yeah.
I
I like to say voluntold.
to take on all sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections in our work. So we went from just HIV to HIV hepatitis C to all sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections. So HIV, Hep C, syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, you name it, we do. Okay. That doesn't sound good. But
That's the point across.
But that's the work we do. And a lot of the work we did was around supporting people living with HIV, but we also do a lot of work around preventing transmission and linking people to other services and supports that they need while living with HIV. Housing, age, legal issues. People live with lots of complex issues, and adding HIV just makes life a whole lot crazier. Again, my privilege, I got to walk out of it a lot better off than a lot of other people did because I had everything I needed to keep me well safe.
Yeah. And I think that's like a thing with that as well too, right? Is like not only did it kill a lot of people, it also, might have destroyed the person, but it also, and like your friend, for example, the one who was thrown out of cells, destroyed a lot of families as well too.
Exactly.
And all the social relationships that go along with that.
And in the end, the organization is still deeply connected to the roots from which it grew, which is treating people with respect, treating people with humanity, accepting people and supporting them where they're at, and not expecting them to be somewhere that you think they should be, but by asking them
Meeting them
where
they
you
are.
want to be.
Yeah.
Where do you need to get to, and how do we get you there? So that is the essence of what we do. We're about prevention, education, support. Those are the three key pieces of work that we do. It's probably what's kept me involved in the work all these years, even though I've bounced around from different positions and roles. It's that opportunity to inform, educate, and prevent that keeps me in this.
Yeah.
Because prevention is the critical key. HIV is 100% preventable. Totally preventable.
With the right information.
With the right information, with access to resources, education, and many of those things are not available to folks at the times when they most should have it and need it, and that's when they're younger. I like to remind all of my friends my age and my colleagues who now have young children about the things we did when we were our teenage children's years of age and what we got away with and what we dodged simply because there was no multimedia, there was no insta chat, there was no,
there wasn't a camera on.
There are things that I got away with when I was younger that there's no evidence of it ever having happened. There's no photo, there's no image, there's no story. Today, man, there's like 15 photos of you, on Instagram in a heartbeat. So the times have definitely changed around that. One of the biggest things I hear when I'm out in community doing my work with the booth, for example, particularly in universities, Bow Valley College, MRU, SAIT, things like that, UC, I hear it all the time. Why wasn't this in my house? It's not in high school because We don't have the funding to do it.
Okay.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And we need to be invited in.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like they have the school has to opt in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a time when I was in 5 different schools in a week talking about living with HIV. I can't tell you last time I was in high school.
Okay. Yeah. So it's been
to speak to young people who are most at risk.
Yeah.
I should say most at risk. That are at a higher risk due to their lack of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of a strategic way to talk about that. But,
Without opening a can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that education is the key.
Yeah.
If we really want to stop HIV, we need to start talking about the fact that people living with an undetectable viral load are not a threat.
Yeah.
We need to deal with criminalization of non-disclosure of HIV. We need to remove stigma attached to HIV. It is the only illness, sexually transmitted bloodborne infection, that you need to disclose to any sexual partner, even if there's no possibility of transmission.
Really?
Yeah. So because
I didn't realize that. I thought.
So
okay.
I'm undetectable.
Yeah.
If I wasn't in a relationship with my husband.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a sexual encounter with someone else, I am legally obligated to tell that person that I have HIV before engaging in a sexual.
Or else you can be charged.
Or else I can be charged with non-disclosure, be charged with aggravated sexual assault, end up on a sex offenders list, and potentially in prison.
Is that
even if there's no chance of transmission?
Is that an Alberta law or a
That's
federal
a national
law? That's federal law. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that the only disease that they'll
Do that for it.
Yeah.
Currently, yes, it's the only one that can be criminalized. There are others where you can be charged where you're supposed to disclose. You're supposed to disclose syphilis. You're supposed to promote, let people know you have HPV. Do we charge them if you don't? No.
Okay. So that one's they're like it's a law but it's not really enforced. Whereas HIV it is enforced. It's a law and it's enforced.
Well, yeah, because of the stigma and the fear,
Yes.
and all that's attached.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I found a way to open up the can of worms. All right, to address the can of worms without opening it up. Okay, so you can't go into schools to talk with kids right now. What are some of the ways that you guys are trying to not get around it, but get that population or inform that population today? Yeah.
Just to clarify, it's not that we can't.
Okay.
We don't have the capacity.
Okay. Okay.
So we don't have the funds, and we have to be invited.
Right.
So
Okay.
the school needs to be open to having us in as well to talk about this subject.
Okay.
And we know that there are challenges around talking about anything sexual in schools in not just Alberta, but in many other provinces. So it's always been a challenge. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. You don't want to talk about those taboo topics, right? And that's all fair. But by not giving our young people the knowledge and the tools to keep themselves safe, we're really doing 2 things. We're providing them a disservice, and we may be impacting our tax base and our healthcare system funding dollars in a way that we could very easily avoid.
Yeah.
The cost of caring for a person living with HIV, as figured out by the Canadian AIDS Society 10 years ago, was $1 million per person over the course of a lifetime.
Yeah.
How many people in this country are living with HIV?
I don't know.
I don't know the number off the top of my head either,
Okay.
but I know we're talking 15,000 plus.
Okay.
At $1 million a person.
Wow. So huge money.
Right? And so, there's it's complex. We made great strides, but with those strides, we seem to be taking our eye off the bigger picture of new infections.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can live with HIV. No, I don't want you to.
Yeah.
And no, you shouldn't have to because it's 100% preventable if you know how.
Yeah.
And even when you know how, it's still not 100% preventable because people have to make choices in life that suck.
Yeah.
And sometimes using a condom isn't one of those choices.
Okay, so you've been talking to the public about this for 15 or more years.
Yeah.
What, besides fear, what do you think is the reason that people are so squeamish about talking about this kind of stuff?
It's one of those things that touches on all of those really sensitive taboo areas that we as a society would rather have just go away, sit under the carpet, not have that discussion because they're uncomfortable, they're difficult. No parent wants to talk to their kids about sex. I didn't want to talk to my parents about sex at all.
Yeah.
No. But who did I talk to about sex? I talked to my peers, which were no better
Yeah.
than,
Yeah.
in fact, they were probably maybe more dangerous as a resource for knowledge, assuming that people actually knew what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we can equip people with the knowledge they need to have when they most need it, we can really reduce people living with HIV. We can stop spending money on our healthcare system in a way that's totally preventable. And we would start to have conversation about HIV in the current context of what it is. It's just sexually transmitted infection that comes with some complex treatment and a change in lifestyle for the person who's living with it. But it's not the destiny. So we're we got people who are still don't want us to talk about HIV specifically because it involves talking about sex, it involves talking about substance use, it involves talking about consent, it involves talking about relationships.
Yeah.
It's complex. It's a deep conversation. And not every parent feels equipped for that conversation. Not every kid wants to have that conversation with their parent. So how do we go around that? We go around that by providing our education free of charge online. They just go to our website, go through our list of trainings, when they're available, pick the one they want, register, we send them the link, they take the training, we give them a certificate saying, you've taken this training, you have this knowledge, you can now share this knowledge.
Can you talk about what training you guys provide? If you don't know, that's okay.
Wow, we do, but this is extensive. So basically anything sexually transmitted, bloodborne infection related. So we talk about HIV, syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, all of those things. We talk about substance use. We talk about substance use in the trade. We talk about sex work. We talk about New Canadian. We talk about Black African Caribbean. We talk about Indigenous communities. We talk about legal issues. We talk about discrimination. We talk about language, the use of language, the type of language we use to talk about HIV, and people living with HIV. We try to provide people with we do provide people with the most current science and knowledge related to the topics of care. And the best part of what we can do is that we can take any of the topics that we have knowledge in and create a presentation specific to the audience that wants. So we can create a presentation specific to 16-year-olds who may be living in incarceration or in group home or everyday life like every other normal kid in the world gets to live. But we're able to provide them with that information.
Okay.
So knowledge is power. We've heard this for years and years and years. But by not talking about something doesn't make it go away, and it doesn't keep your children safe.
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah. So let's say there's a parent watching this or listening to this right now, and they're hesitant or a little scared because they don't know how to broach this conversation with their kid. What advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh, because I don't have kids, I always feel like I have no room to really speak to this. But I speak to a lot of kids. Yeah. And I have nieces and nephews who I adore, and I've had these conversations with them quite openly and honestly. So that's again, I've been fortunate in comparison to what people experience. Wow. I need to ask me the question again.
Yeah, it was essentially if there's a parent out there listening to this who, they're like, you know what, this is a tough conversation to have. I'd like my kid to know this information, but like I don't even know how to have this conversation.
I think the first thing I would suggest to any parent who's struggling, because this is a really difficult conversation, is reach out to the numerous organizations that can support you in this work. We're not the only one, right? In fact, we're kind of really specific in what we do, and when it comes to speaking about sexually transmitted bloodborne infections, we're really good at that work. But if you're a parent looking for someone to speak to, I would come into our office. I would go to our webpage, give us a call, come in and see us, have a conversation with us.
Yeah.
Because quite often the conversation removes a lot of fear and anxiety for a lot of folks. I've had a lot of my friends bring their kids to me to have the conversation because they don't want to have the conversation. I was told by my brother, I'm not having this conversation with my kids, you are. And I, in some cases. So that's a really important piece. So that's the first part of it. Do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
Do your due diligence. I think the Center for Sexuality is another great option for family folks to look at, especially when it's just talking about sex and sexual activities and things like that, and maybe sexually transmitted bloodborne infections. But they're also really good at speaking to those other outlying areas that are also very complex around sexuality, and that is orientation, gender identity, gay, straight, bi, trans, non-binary, two-spirit, heterosexual, the alphabet soup that we have that's out there today is challenging stuff.
Yeah, I would say that, but sorry, finish.
Grab your resources. Connect with us. And if it's not us, we probably know who is, and we'll connect you to them. And that's part of what we do. That hence the term SafeLink.
Yeah,
we're about linking people to safer resources.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're a parent or someone who doesn't know how to start this conversation with someone you love or someone you think this would be an important conversation to have with, call SafeLink Alberta, even ask for Mark, and talk about what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I do a lot of work online.
Okay.
So my program, because I'm specifically supporting men who have sex with men.
Yeah.
However that identity is. I use that men who have sex with men as a blanket all for gay, bi, trans men, all those folks. They're all unique, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they're all basically male identifying folks who have sex with other male identifying folks. So men who have sex with men is my all encompassing word.
I think that's a good definition.
And go to that's my thought. I hate it, but I do that.
What were we talking about? We're talking about parents for resources, connecting with you. A lot of your work is online.
Yeah. So I'm on that. That's what I really want to do. So our education is online, but our programs within our operation. So our drumbeat program, our shift program, our Big Heat program, which is the program I have, are all programs that have an online presence.
Okay. Could you talk about what those are? I'm not sure what
we're currently,
or if there's more than that's possible. Yeah.
It's so because some of those programs, I don't want to send someone in the wrong direction because we're working on relaunching.
Okay. So check the website.
So check our website for sure, but specifically for my program, speaking to my program, and Men Who Have Sex with Men, I get to hang out on a lot of sites that are about guys hooking up with guys. So I spend a lot of my day looking at a lot of really what some people would consider inappropriate,
explicit,
very explicit adult content. But these are where I'm having probably my most informative conversations with folks because it's behind the screen. It's not face to face.
It's less scary for people.
It's less scary for people. They can ask the question and not feel like they're being judged in the moment. They can ask almost anything they want. This is where I get a lot of questions around What is undetectable? What is PrEP? What are all of these things that I'm hearing about that I should have heard, but don't
Okay.
until I'm coming out of labor. And we have a lot of guys who come out much later in life, end of relationships, partners pass away, suddenly decide they're going to, not suddenly decide, that's a terrible choice of words.
It's taken a long time to make that decision.
Have now got the opportunity to investigate and see this other side of themselves that they maybe have kept hidden, suppressed, or denied in some way, shape, or form for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason. It's a great opportunity to have really frank, honest conversations with guys that probably can't have those conversations anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's kind of at the same event that I met you at.
It's a women's health event. It was a women's mental health event.
Yeah, it's kind of. I didn't know that until I got there, but then because there was also an accessibility, disability services thing going on. So okay. I don't know if they were connected. Like,
they were.
They were connected.
No.
Oh, they weren't connected. There was two separate things in the kind of safe space.
Yeah.
But and I think we were laughing at like the two white guys in a wheelchair, right? And I think like the way that I think about how we named our podcast is it's kind of poking fun at identity politics in a way where, because we talk about like, the privilege that white people get, right? And especially like two guys, right? Yeah. Two cis heterosexual, cis guys, right? But I think that's also that you talk about like, the power structure in whether because I think a lot of people in, at least in my experience, who identify as that, right? It's the scariest conversation to have for that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, there's a lot like, nope, that's not a thing. Cause it kind of, and I'm probably saying this wrong, but to a certain extent, there's like a kind of a demonization of that role. And that might not be the best way of describing it, but, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And it creates there's just like a much more nuanced conversation that can be had. Was a white guy bad, black guy good kind of thing that it all breaks down to, right? And I think that there's a lot of value in those nuanced conversations that do pop up from that. And I think that we are trying to explore those conversations. I think it doesn't have to be as scary of a conversation that people think about in their mind. Because I know for me, like I got exposed to it through a relationship who the person who I was seeing, she was sociology, psychology major, had a lot of gender studies courses. I was in engineering, and I was like,
and we know how engineers think.
Yeah. I would say, that it was probably a better idea for me to go to those gender studies classes than the engineering ones. If I look back, like, hindsight's 20/20, but I learned a lot from the engineering ones. But in this relationship, it was the first time I was kind of exposed to the whole idea of like a lot of these sociological terms that come up when you're discussing sex and gender and race, right? Race, class, all of that, the intersectionality and everything. Right. And to me, I find those conversations really fascinating because they're complex. And it's like, there is good, there is bad, but there's also so much in the middle.
They're the juiciest conversations.
They're the juiciest conversations to have. I would agree with that.
Yeah. And I don't like boring conversation. Yeah. I like conversation that stimulate thoughts, question, challenge, seek.
Yeah. I think that's where, in my opinion, like I was raised Roman Catholic, but do I believe in God? Some days yes, some days no. But I think that's like good conversations like that in my mind, like that's where God is. Like that's where you figure out the truth, right? And I think if anything, in my mind, that people get away, the listener takes away from this conversations is to not, well, I shouldn't tell you not to be afraid of those conversations, because I know I was afraid to start having those conversations, but just approach them with curiosity, and don't be afraid to call Mark. Don't be afraid to go to the website. Go check out these things, because they're.
Don't be afraid to be wrong.
Don't be afraid to be wrong. Yeah.
Right? I think that's probably one of almost every time somebody asks me, this is probably a stupid question, and I always tell people there is no stupid question.
Mm-hmm.
There is always a question.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask the question, then you don't get the answer. And if you don't have the answer, now you're running around with a question, or a question and the wrong information.
Yeah.
So I always, say it like it is. People are, they're so afraid of saying something that will offend me as a gay man, or say the wrong word. I've always, and I think part of why I may be successful at what I do with folk is because I leave plenty of room for people to say the wrong thing, to use the wrong term. I always encourage them, say it the way you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
If the language needs to change, I will gently show you a different language to use, or a different descriptor, like, AIDS victim. No, they're a person living with HIV, right? So we can do that. But if we as advocates and educators trying to make change, do not give people the space to make an error or to say something that may be inappropriate, then we're doing ourselves a disservice by not giving them the opportunity to learn the fact.
Yeah.
So I make mistakes all the time. I am constantly struggling with gender pronouns with my colleagues and my friends. I still misgender folks, but I quickly correct myself when I know. But it continues, and this is part of evolution. This is part of society. This is part of humanity.
Yeah.
Each generation becomes a little bit more aware than the one before it.
Yeah.
And the older ones start to get a little crankier about the younger ones coming up and changing the way the rules go.
Kids these days.
Kids these days. Oh, the first time my father came out of my mouth, oh my God. I stopped dead in my tracks and went, God, that was my dad. I just quoted my dad. And it was an instant. It's like, no, you got to take that back. That's just so wrong. I think we need to give people. We have to give people leeway. We have to let curious people feel safe enough to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm still figuring shit out around this. I learn something new every day. I run into someone from community who isn't a gay white man with HIV. There's somebody else with HIV, and I learned shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned. I could not imagine packing up, leaving my entire family, my entire culture, my country, move to another country where it's a whole new language. It has winter that I've never seen before. And try and assimilate and fit into that society. It just blows my mind what so many new Canadians go through to come to this country, and what they give up to come here, and what they pay to come here, versus what I have access to just because I. So I like I say, I learn something new every day. I make mistakes quite frequently. But having the ability to acknowledge that I made that mistake and speak to that mistake and get the forgiveness from the person that I made the mistake with, just makes everything better. Yeah. Our society becomes better. We as individuals become better. And that can only be good.
Yeah.
That can only be a good outcome.
I would agree with that. And I think that's kind of what, so there's I agree with that. And I know that there's a lot of discomfort and stumbling over each other, and it's like when you're wrestling with someone and it's like it's fun, but then you elbow them in the eye and you give them a black eye, and it's like it's kind of there is when you have conversations like that happens as well too. But I think the more people learn to like gain the skills to have complex conversations like that, I think there's only a benefit to it, because you get closer to the truth, what's going on, instead of like they're bad, oh they're all good, kind of that binary thinking, where it's like it's really like the Buddha, right? The middle path. It's the hardest path to walk. So, I think that might be a natural place. Eric, do you have anything to do you want to say? Or?
No.
I was just going to say that might be a natural place to wrap it up. I think we've been going for an hour and a half or something like that right now. So yeah, it goes by quick when you get into it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. What is that? 15 minutes? Oh no, an hour. Oh, okay. But I just wanted to say, I guess maybe I'll ask that. So for anyone listening, what's a good place for them to find more information, or find some of these programs that you're talking about? If you could just maybe say either the website or a social media account that they could follow. What you take?
Definitely, this is our definitely our webpage. So SafeLinkAlberta.ca, all lowercase, I believe. Speak with us. Definitely connect with us. We can connect you to other organizations out there, community as well. We're specifically around STDBIs. That's our bread and butter. It's what we do. It's what our knowledge is. But we're also very heavily connected to other community organizations and partnerships, because everything that we do is through collaboration wherever possible, because small nonprofits cannot survive without collaboration. They just can't. We have to support each other. We have to work with each other, and we have to teach each other when we're doing things good and when we're doing things not so great, how we can always be better at what we do.
It takes a village.
It takes a village. Absolutely. My favorite. I used to get that from my colleague Speedway all the time. She would just say that it takes a village, my friend. It takes a village, and it does, and it does, and I believe that the city of Calgary and province of Alberta is an amazing village. Contrary to some of what some people may think about what's going on maybe in the world right now in our lovely little Alberta, there's nothing that would ever get me out of here. And so I think the people in Alberta are amazing, and they continue to support the work we do, even though
it gets tricky sometimes.
We can be
kind of mean.
we're that conversation at the family dinner table.
Yes. Yeah.
But we do great things. We have great clients and amazing people that we support. And we work from a place of humanity. So, and I think so long as we can keep the focus on our humanity and being good people to treat people as good people, we can only get better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And thank you for coming on. Thank you for telling us your story and a little bit more about SafeLink.
Thanks for the invite.
No, we were super happy to have you on it. It was really nice.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. And to the listener, we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Did you see that it froze there for a while?
Dap-a-doo, two white guys in a wheelchair.